The fact that we are conscious, the simple fact that we feel pain, to me, is proof that we are spiritual beings, because matter cannot feel. That's not defined. If it can feel, there's no mechanism to it. We don't know how matter feels, no matter how organized it is, in the form of a brain or whatever. It's not supposed to feel. If it feels anything, because it's spiritual. So that's the point I make in the book. We are spiritual beings, and that's like a hidden in plain sight. We are spiritual beings because we are not rocks. Like we are spiritual beings because we can feel, we can experience the whole thing. And only spiritual, that's so the experience is not happening on the material level. It's what people would say, consciousness is non-local. It doesn't happen in the brain.
Right.
It happens in another context, in another reality.
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we are back at it again for another episode of Living Life Consciously. I have a very special guest lined up for you today, and I'm stoked to get started. So without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Hey there, Cosmic Thrill Seekers. I'm Justin. This is Living Life Consciously, where we explore the extraordinary, ride the waves of inspiration, and embark on an adventure of limitless curiosity together.
And I'm Leslie, your co-host, also known as Light Being Love, an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. And it's awesome to be here with Daniel. Daniel, would you like to say hi?
Hi everyone. I'm no one, just someone being interviewed.
You're funny. So to introduce Daniel to our audience, on this episode of Living Life Consciously, we dive into the fascinating world of consciousness and the brain with Daniel Branco, a neurologist turned neuroscientist, entrepreneur, and author. But that's not all. He's also an astrophotographer, pilot, and explorer. Born in Brazil, Daniel's journey is one of science, spirituality, and self-discovery. After studying the brain as a neurologist and postdoctoral neuroscientist at Harvard, where he mapped the brain for epilepsy and tumor surgeries, Daniel realized there's more to consciousness than meets the eye. Now he's blending the rational with the spiritual to explore life's biggest mysteries. We're thrilled to discuss his groundbreaking new book, Spiriduality, Spiritual Initiation for Rational People, where he tackles an age-old question. Does your brain create consciousness, or does consciousness create the brain? His book guides you through the duality of brain versus consciousness, the physical versus the spiritual, and shows how a deeper understanding of consciousness can transform your life and the world around you. Daniel, thank you so much. I'm like, your resume has me like, my brain is spinning in a million different directions.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Leslie. It's great to be here tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I cannot wait to dive into your book, but I feel like there's a million different places I could start this conversation. Is there anywhere specific you would like to start?
Wow, yeah, there are many ways to get started. I think the best, cutting to the chase.
Okay, I like it.
The question that the book tries to answer is consciousness created by the brain or produced by the brain, or is it the other way around? I think that's one of the most important questions in for humanity to think about, to figure out, because we live in a world that has decided, for whatever reason, we have decided that the brain creates consciousness. This is the working assumption of our world, right? Everything from our politics, our laws, our customs, everything is based on the idea that the brain creates consciousness. And no one is in position to prove or disprove otherwise,
Okay.
but realizing that that's not a fact and it's an assumption is critical. It is critical because we tend to assume that assumption as a fact, and that's very dangerous. And we can spend thousands of years living in a certain way because we believe an assumption is a fact without ever questioning that assumption.
Oh man, that's so true. It's making me think of the idea of like programming and how people are just indoctrinated with these facts or truths, but in reality, it's kind of the other way around.
It is.
What made you like sink your teeth into this question so much? Like why was it such a passion project for you?
I have that in me since I was a child.
Okay.
That those questions and the willing to pursue that. I actually became a neurologist and a neuroscientist because I wanted to answer those questions. I wanted to, at the time, I wanted to understand how the brain produces consciousness. That was the whole motivation for me to go do medical school in the first place, because I never wanted to see patients. To be honest.
Okay.
I wanted to, and I was growing up in Brazil in the 90s, that's when I went to college. In Brazil, medical school is undergrad, as it is in like most of the world except for the US and Canada. But I was in the engineering school, like working with computers, and I was a research assistant designing microchips.
Oh, wow.
Or help design microchips. Yeah.
You're a smarty pants for real. You're like a real deal smarty pants. Certified.
At least a version of me in the past was.
Okay.
And I was studying computers, and that's what I was very geeky growing up as a child.
Yeah.
And I was always fascinated by the spiritual. I had a very spiritual upbringing.
Oh.
And experiences as a teenager. And anyway, I was fascinated by that. Like I grew up doing meditations and participating in groups where people try to have out-of-body experiences by doing meditations of special types. Or I
know. I'm sitting here
You're
like,
I hope the future of like all young people will be.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I didn't find meditation until I was like in my damn 30s.
That probably helped to be such a smarty pants. Do you think that moved you forward in your education and just expanding your mind to like the whole meditation, doing that as a child, or was it a teenager? Or
yeah, I was as a child. We didn't call that meditation. We used to call that like a bioenergy work. It wasn't the Indian derived type of meditation. It was something else. I managed to meet somehow I met these people in my hometown in Brazil at the time. Brazil is a very interesting place when it comes to religions and beliefs. And
I would think it'd be a very religious place. Isn't South America typically very religious? That's why I'm like kind of shocked when you say you grew up spiritual. I'm like, that's such an interesting concept.
Yeah, no, but it's a very interesting, because it's a melting pot of religions from other places, Africa, for example. So mediums is a very common thing.
Okay.
I grew up with mediums in my family, so it was. And you have you have channelers and you have mediums, and I think they're a little bit different.
Yeah.
And at least my understanding is that channelers, they never lose their own consciousness, and they receive a message and they transcribe a message, or they are conduits. Whereas, at least this is my understanding, I may be wrong. Whereas the medium can totally let go and become another person, like another whatever soul consciousness comes in and takes over. And that happens that happens in many types of smaller religions in Brazil, because Brazil was predominantly a Catholic country.
That's what I was
Today,
thinking. Yeah.
yes.
But it sounds like they're open-minded and
It's
a
very
melting pot.
open-minded. It's not like it's not it's not mandatory. There is a real separation between church and state.
Goodness.
So you were free to explore and whatever. So I
Okay.
was born Catholic, and I was technically raised Catholic. Got married in like the Catholic church.
Okay.
But on the side, I mean, I stopped going to the church very young. I told my mom, I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm.
And
Yeah, me too.
and then as a child, I had the clear feeling and the clear perception that I was not from this world. Like, and I used to avoid telling that, because people would think that it could come across as arrogant or something. I don't know what do you think you are?
I understand what you mean.
But it's a feeling like, what can I do? It's there's something off. You feel there's something off. It's not what you're used to. It's like certain things don't make sense. The whole world doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I think we can all relate to that on some level. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Just feeling like you have to like adjust, and like there's certain things that you see around you and you're like, really? Is that really how it is? Okay, I guess so, you know?
Yeah, go figure, right? Like, why is it like that? Certain things are very hard to understand and to make sense of. And but despite of all that, at some point I decided. I remember the day, like one day I was thinking, because what happened was I went to college, and then I started living a conflict between my spiritual background and science. In the engineering school, that was becoming a thing. Like, and I was working with computers, and I was so interested about consciousness. And that's when I decided to drop out from the engineering school and go to medical school, because both are undergrad
Okay.
courses in Brazil, with the idea of studying the brain and figuring out, like, I needed to answer, because I had my experiences growing up. I had their spiritual background, and I needed to reconcile that with science.
What kind of experiences? I don't know if you wanted to share. Like, was there anything specific as far as experiences that you had?
I can go in more detail. It's not something that it's not a secret, but it might become a longer story than it needs to be. But essentially, one day I was in one of those meditations with a friend of mine, and at a beach house, his beach house, and we were high schoolers. And at some point we got so scared because we felt this energy, this bad energy coming into the room.
Oh, yeah.
And we literally saw like a little gray aliens in our mind. We never saw anything like physical. But like we were scared, as they were like kids scared doing like whatever.
Was it from your perception, or do you think that they were,
in the environment?
So that's not the point. The point is that we were scared, and we started asking for help from the mentors of our group.
Okay.
Which were like 100 kilometers away. In Brazil, yes, kilometers. In another city, like that was Saturday night, and we called for them, and we noticed when this lady, who was one of the leaders of our group, came into the room like energetically and helped us clean the room, and she calmed us down, and she was like, and my friend were describing to each other what was happening in our minds in that room energetically, like, because it was a black dark room, we couldn't see anything. But the interesting thing is that next Wednesday, when we get to meet the group, that week the meeting was at her house. As soon as she opens the door, she looks at us and says, "My sons, what happened to you guys that you were so scared last Saturday?"
Wow.
She describing the whole scene.
Wow, you must have been like...
And
So you
that
guys
was,
mentally called, or in your consciousness called for her help. It's not like you physically got on the phone and said, "Hey, we need your
yeah,
help."
mentally. We just
It was all mentally, and you didn't
yeah.
speak to her until the following week when you
No, we
saw
never
her.
mentioned anything. No, yeah.
Okay.
The funny thing is that those kind of things, experiences were quite normal. Like it was not something totally out of this world. But I remember that for the first time I had like a more kind of scientific evidence. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just brains connecting. Maybe the brain has an antenna capacity and there's nothing metaphysical to it. It's just like a feature of the brain that we haven't realized yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just that, but there is something else. So I knew for a fact there is something else. How come she knew about it?
Right.
And then we are in a world now of UAPs where remote viewing is a thing.
Yes.
So and it's getting more and more accepted. So those experiences, they are all variations of the same kind of phenomenon, I think. She somehow we were able to connect, and but that was the first time that I had like, this is I can't prove. I can. It proof enough for me. It wasn't a controlled scientific study, but I knew it was.
Yeah.
You got validation from it, in other words, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I got validation from there.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I went to medical school and became a neurologist. Eventually, ended up at Harvard doing brain mapping for the planning of epilepsy and brain tumor surgeries. So
Okay.
the idea being is that whenever a surgeon is going to remove a certain part of the brain, if that's a diseased part of the brain and you remove it, it's probably okay. But then usually very adjacent to the diseased area, there are functional areas. Sometimes the tumor pushes the normal areas away. So there is a risk during the surgery for the surgeon to remove more than they should. And they need to know, because sometimes you want to be aggressive. If it's a tumor, you want to remove as much as you can.
Yeah, not leave any of it behind so it comes back.
But it also, you don't want to leave the patient impaired.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off, and so those maps that I used to do using functional MRI, which is a pretty known technique. But then at that time it was kind of underdeveloped. That was early 2000, between 2000. I started developing the technique for my project at least in the late 90s, and then I was at Harvard between 2004 and 6.
Okay.
Doing those time. So my maps helped inform the surgeon about the patient's actual brains and what the brains were doing, and at some point, and then after as I was finishing my postdoc, after 2 years in my postdoc at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, I was going to pursue an academic career. I had an offer to start as professor of neuroradiology at Cornell.
Wow.
And it was a joint appointment at Cornell and the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I went through like an inner reality check and reflection. What am I doing? Because my whole point pursuing academic career in science was to understand how the brain is creating consciousness, and I couldn't. Like nothing there was telling me that the brain was actually creating consciousness. It sounds kind of obvious for most people that the brain is creating consciousness, because you remove a certain area of the brain and the person loses that ability or that function that is related to that area of the brain. So the maps have a lot of show a lot of correlation between consciousness and brain activity, but correlation is not causation, and that's where the problem lies. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, that's such an interesting topic, and man, where does consciousness come from?
I'm curious on what do you think the brain's function is, and I would say really the body, because I kind of feel like it's all a filter for consciousness. And would you say that? And then maybe there are certain parts of the brain that obviously control certain parts, but it's like that part of the filter, it gets messed up, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Our brain and our bodies are just a machine. And it's a very noisy machine. I've been through a near-death experience as well, and I can tell like about the noise of the machine at some point. But brains, everything that is matter-based, that is physical, is essentially a machine, right? Like
we say bio machines often, we pretty much feel
it has a mechanism to it, so it's a machine. We are not a machine. And if we are the machine, there's absolutely nobody has any idea of how a machine, no matter how sophisticated, can produce consciousness. So that difficulty is behind the whole conversation around, is AI conscious or not? Like nobody knows for sure. And I don't think science can really answer that question, because I don't think consciousness happens on a physical level. So if it's not physical, it's outside the limitations of the scientific method. So the thing of science is that science is great. Like I work with science, I developed a career in science. I work with biotech these days, which is like a bioscience. But you have to understand that science is a method.
Okay.
It's a method that has been kind of transformed into a religion.
Okay.
Ooh, speak on that.
It's just a method. And as every method, it is constrained by the definition of the method. So one of the assumptions of the method. So one of the assumptions of the scientific method is that the world is real, that matter is real, that the physical world exists.
Yeah.
It's all built on top of a lie.
It's an assumption, because science is based on that assumption, so it cannot prove the assumption. Science cannot be used to prove the assumption upon which it's built. Does that make sense?
And I mean, all science is basically, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it all theory? Evolving, like science is ever evolving, right? It's supposed to be able to change when new things are found, and but nothing's ever like concrete, right?
So science has been evolving, right? So hard science is physics. And I still want to get to your question about what the brain is and what the bodies are. But science is hard science is physics. Let's say there's no consciousness intervention in physics. Those laws are going to work no matter what you do, in principle, because there is some suggestion or some level of evidence that consciousness can also influence those kind of experiments of physics. Quantum mechanics being one example, of when consciousness, the interpretation of quantum mechanics is one of the several interpretations is related to how consciousness actually has a role in the outcome, or in the I'm not a physicist, so I'm not going to try to talk physics.
Is that the observable? What the double?
It's the double slit experiment.
Yeah,
is one of the examples.
Yeah, that has been discussed a lot. But one of the quantum mechanics interpretation is the multi-world, right? The multiple universe explanation or interpretation. And a lot of physicists don't like that, because although it might be real, it falls outside the boundaries of science. Because if there
it doesn't fit in the box of science, right? They don't want to consider things that they can't explain through the scientific method.
And also, there's very little they can do about it.
That too,
right, yeah.
By using science. right? So either science is going to keep evolving and changing, and the method is going to change, but I don't really see how that's going to happen. I think there is a fundamental limit to what science can do, and I'm going to continue to answer the question about our brains and our bodies to try and make that point.
Sure.
So the way I see our brains and our bodies, this is bodies and brains are just garments. Like we are able to wear a body which comes with a very sophisticated computer, which is the brain.
Okay.
And that's it. Those are all tools that we have at our own disposal, right? So one thing that I like to give as an example is pain. Like when you touch a hot pan, anything hot, automatically you're going to retrieve your finger from that. There is a science around this. So the pain stimulus go to your spine, and then it doesn't even need to go to the brain, even though it does eventually. But at the spine, that signal is processed, and it's a motor action, a motor signal is sent back to the finger. So you end up removing the finger from the hot thing, regardless of you're not even conscious. You only get aware of the fact after you already removed your finger, because it takes more time for the signal to move to your brain, which is when you become conscious of it, which is one of the evidences that make people think that the brain is creating consciousness, because you become conscious of the pain at the moment that the signal gets up there. The thing is, from a scientific perspective, pain doesn't exist. What exists are signals.
Signals, yeah.
And the mechanics of it, like there is information and input from the outer world, and there is a reaction, a motor reaction to that input, right?
Yes.
And you can, as a scientist, can see that signal is going up all the way up to the brain, and what I could see using functional MRI or other techniques is a certain activity, neuronal activity in a certain area of the brain. And I could measure all of that. Okay. And I could create all of the charts, and I could explain to you how all of the mechanism works, yet there's no pain for me to find as a scientist.
Right.
Yeah. So pain, the experience of pain, I can explain the mechanism, but the experience of pain is nowhere to be found.
And that's very interesting, and that really resonates and hits hard with me, because in 2010 I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain condition, and they don't understand.
And there's no way to make diagnosis. Like there's no test for that.
Exactly.
Nothing.
They just do all the tests, and then if everything comes back normal and there's no reasonable explanation, they label it as fibromyalgia, and they describe it as just like the fact that my nerve
diagnosis.
It is. And they just say that it's like my nervous system is just constantly sending pain signals when there's no outside stimulus to be really causing that. So it's like, when I have back pain, I feel like my back is being raked with flames, or like if my hands are sore, my joints and stuff, it's like my nervous system is just like literally doing too much for no reason.
Yeah. Now, it is a problem of, it is a consciousness disease, or is an organic disease?
I was asking you.
It's probably organic, because you can treat fibromyalgia and you can get improvement with certain drugs, but it's not like a bullet. There's no silver bullet for that.
Right. And plus, there's like a plethora of like all these different symptoms that could all manifest differently in each moment. So it's like one day you could be dealing with X, Y, and Z symptoms, and then the next day you're dealing with, QSR symptoms.
And there's an experience associated with it. That's the most important thing. And that experience is nowhere to be found. So as a doctor, as a neurologist or any doctor, if we want to understand how much pain a certain patient is having, we ask them, like from a scale from 0 to 10, how bad is your pain?
Right.
This is how basic our access to the information. And think about it. We only ask the question because we are conscious physicians who have felt pain also. Otherwise, we'll be feeling completely let's say we are a robot, assuming it's an unconscious robot.
Yeah.
Asking this, like people will refer about pain. The robot might learn, the artificial intelligence robot might even learn that, well, if I ask about this thing called pain and they tell me a number, I can correlate the number with a diagnosis, a prognosis, and things like that. But the robot really has no clue of what it's talking about.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. I never thought of it in terms of AI before.
Well, so basically, I think what he's saying is there's no mechanism for me to know how much pain you are in.
Right.
Other than you just saying.
Yeah, every time I went to the doctor, they're like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at today?
Right. And if we had not experienced pain for ourselves,
you wouldn't know
what it is. There's no way for them to quantify your pain, your signal.
I'm wondering, in the back of my head, I keep thinking, since you mentioned that you were, doing the computer chip work or whatever, but how much did the computer play into your understanding of consciousness and the body and everything?
So you mean the brain computer?
Yeah, I know you worked with actual computers. Did that work, overflow into your?
No, I decided to study the brain because to me, the brain was the ultimate computer. A computer that was so ahead that was able to generate consciousness. And then eventually I figured, no, it's not creating consciousness. It's probably just contextualizing or filtering the experience. So let's think in terms of qualia. Qualia is everything that can be perceived, like a song is a qualia. You can, for example, you can hear two sounds, but you may not be able to recognize that sound as music. For example, if you have a certain brain impairment, right? You won't be able to. That's just noise. You can interpret that as music. So noise is one type of qualia. Music is another type of qualia. Love is qualia. Color is qualia. All of those qualia, they don't exist in the physical world because they are experiences.
Right.
It's let's say we were able to. That's an example I use in the book. Let's say we were able to sense the magnetic field of the Earth.
Okay.
That would be a sixth sense because we only have 5, right?
Right.
We have to make do with 5 senses only, or meaning 5 broad qualities, so to speak. But the universe, has probably an infinite quantity of qualia or types of qualia. But
we're limited.
Our brains limit our experience, our conscious experience into a human experience.
Yes, I try to tell people that all the time. I'm like, these meat suits that our souls or our consciousness is hanging out in limits what we're experiencing, yet we rely so much on the 5 senses to know whether something is real or not, but really we're not able to tap into
what
all
we're working through.
Yeah. I love this conversation.
Think of echolocation, for example. Dolphins have echolocation. So
right.
How does it feel like having echolocation? It's another quality, it's another type of sense we don't have, right? So we can try, maybe by studying the dolphin brain and the type of neuron that is associated, not necessarily producing, but associated with that experience, we can infer that, well, maybe echolocation is more like a vision than smell sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Or auditory sense. Maybe is it more like vision or is it more like audition?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever pondered that.
I feel I guess I always assumed it was
I thought it was like a sound thing, but maybe it's not.
But maybe
it could be
maybe it's sound that can be seen, like sonar. Sonar is a sound that can be seen, right?
Right.
So, but the point is not even that is not the most important question. The thing that is important to realize is that we are trying to understand how echolocation feels like for the dolphin by using qualia that we can feel like.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
we are like maybe it's like vision, maybe it's like a hearing.
But really, we're just guessing.
Right.
But
It's
my
from
point
our
is,
perspective, our human perspective.
What if we never had
Experience.
felt hearing or vision? Like my point at this point is that there is an entire realm in nature
Yes.
that is inaccessible to science.
Yes.
Yeah.
Science can go there and measure a phenomenon, but it cannot tell how it is like to feel and be the phenomenon.
Mm.
Yes.
And there is reality to it. So there is a reality to it. Like this is like a common thread with lovers. Like, how much do you love me? How much do I love you? Like, as if it was a quantitative kind of thing, right? And there is no metric to that, because that love exists at another realm, right? So much so that we don't have access to measuring it.
I knew I wore this shirt today for a reason. Just saying, it's got love written all over it.
Right.
So this is the dilemma. What science recognizes that. So there is something that happens, and it's subjective. Our world recognizes that because we are conscious beings. So we believe, or we know, it's more than believing. We know that our love or our hate, whatever, is real. Our pain is real. If you break your arm, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
And that pain is real. But that pain doesn't exist for science.
Yes.
So interesting.
So conscious. So the other thing that is important to realize is that consciousness is a supernatural phenomenon from a scientific perspective.
Right.
So much so that many scientists they think that consciousness really doesn't exist. It's what they call an epiphenomenon. Like they were explaining anything by saying that. They call it's an epiphenomenon. Like it's something that just happened. It's not real. But then the decision is ours to make. Either our experience of reality is more real than reality, or reality is more real than the experience of the reality. Those two things, what we call reality, which is like 3D, physicality. Either physicality is giving way and is creating this other dimension, this other thing called consciousness, or consciousness exists at another level and it's giving way to physicality. It is manifesting physicality.
Yeah.
Which do you think it is?
I think it's the consciousness is more fundamental. So
I
me too.
But I did want, I'm totally interrupting you, I'm so sorry, but I wanted to say I feel like, and I feel the urge to say that it's like a co-creation. I feel like it's both. Is that possible?
I think it could be, but I think it is hard to make. There might be something else creating both consciousness and physicality.
Okay.
Or there might be another type of substrate. But science itself, it's realizing there are more, and I'm not gonna go there because it gets very like particle mechanics and like very physics kind of thing, and I'm not prepared to qualify to discuss that. But there are articles, and I can send that to you, or you can post in the description, that suggest that space-time is not the ultimate or the most fundamental structure of reality.
Yeah.
There is something beyond. There is something beyond space-time. So if there is something beyond space-time, everything that is contained in space-time, all matter, all time, including all time, is subordinate to a bigger reality. So, and then again, we have the old discussion about dimensions. Like, let's suppose we live in a two-dimensional world, and then this thing that is three-dimensional goes through that sheet of paper world,
right?
And how people in that two-dimensional world will make sense of the three-dimensional thing. They will not. They cannot make sense.
They're only able to perceive the shadow of that extra dimensional thing.
Yeah, their 2D brains have not evolved to make
Exactly.
sense of
Yeah.
that other type. And I think that's related to what we are living now with the UAP and the psychic phenomena and things like that.
That makes sense.
Those things happen because they belong to a higher reality than we are in a lower reality.
Yeah.
I think another way to think about this is like actors on a stage.
Okay.
A lot of people have used this example before, but because the tricky thing about what we're discussing is that I'm saying that our brains are just a calculator and our bodies is just clothing, but we don't have memory of who we were before putting on these clothes, right?
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of confusion. The lack of memory
The
creates a lot
veil.
of, yeah. And I think that because we decided to put ourselves in this 3D context for whatever reason, experience, learning, or whatever, um, because we decided to do that, we had to accept the limitation of a 3D brain. So the memories might even be there, but they cannot be processed
Access.
by
Right.
a 3D brain. Yeah, that's why meditation and all those different states of consciousness give rise to so many different experiences and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's also so difficult to explain them when you're back, because you don't have the referential, the qualia that you experience out there. There's no parallel here in 3D for you to use and tell, oh, this is like a vision. This is like, like we were discussing for echolocation.
Mhm.
We don't have that. For you to know that reality exists, you have to go there and be there at that other realm. And yeah, I was going to say something, but I forgot now. Question.
Yeah. And
No,
I hear through, near-death experiences and maybe channelers, or I don't know, I listen to a whole gambit of, spiritual, from mediums to any kind of anybody who accesses those higher worlds. Basically, I'll listen to what they have to say because I'm just super curious about it. But that we probably have been, a dolphin before, even down to a rock or a tree, to experience being that. But it's kind of far out there for me to throw that in there. I am curious about your near-death experience, and I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I'm curious, when it happened and what the experience was like for you.
Yeah, I can share that. But before that, I remember I was going to say about the character actors on a stage.
Oh,
yes.
When an actor is on a play on a stage, acting, they become, if they're really good at it, they become the character. For some time, they become the character, right? And there's a lot of things that help with that. They might get emotional to the point of crying. I'm unable to do that. I wouldn't be able to be an actor at all. Some people are able to do that. And there is the story that is going on. There are the other characters around you. There is the props on the stage and the circumstances and all of that, right? Honestly, at that moment, the actor is not remembering that he's an actor. He's fully like
Immersed.
immersed in the character.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could stop the play. Oh, who am I again? Like,
yeah, right.
So strong that the actors actually become kind of the character.
Yeah.
Like,
I've heard actors, get so immersed in their character that they carry it through when they're not acting. They'll still be like,
yeah, they have like a hard time to like break the role, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Why? Because it's all our construction. It's all a construction of consciousness. So at this level, we can get to the point where we forget, even if temporarily, who we really are.
Yeah.
Meaning the actor. We can do that here.
Right.
So what is the surprise of forgetting who we are as conscious beings now that we are characters in this stage, Earth?
I love that you're using that analogy to like compare our current incarnation on Earth with like the actors in a play on a stage, and how we just play that role in that moment, but yet forget that there's really like a bigger picture that's like, also at play.
Right, and in a way, in the micro to macro, we are doing that to a certain extent. We are actors in a play.
So it's the same thing, and And that's so important to realize in the core, like in our course, because it's very different living a life using the assumption that we are our bodies and our brains, and then because automatically what that causes is that you live afraid of dying, for example. That'll be the first obvious thing you'll be afraid of anything. You'll be afraid because you are a creation.
Yes.
Something somewhere, someone created you, like even if it was biology or evolution or the universe, you are like nothing. You are a creation, so you can be destroyed. So we live, and there's so much violence in our world today because we believe we are creation, and therefore destructible. And we fear everything. We live at a fear state the whole time. Anxiety is a type of fear.
Yeah.
And because we do believe we are the character, we forget we are the actor, meaning the creator.
Right.
If you think about it, except for nature, everything that matters in our lives are creation. So like this technology we're using here to discuss was created by someone.
It started as a thought.
This house, everything started as a thought. Everything starts in consciousness. Consciousness is the source of every creation, to the point that it makes me think, well, maybe nature is also a creation from source. Maybe the universe is also creation from source.
Yeah.
Because in our realities, we know that for a fact, everything that exists is a creation from us. So we are actually creators. Humans are creators, but we choose to see ourselves as creation and destructible. Whereas what we really are is creator and indestructible.
Yes.
Great point.
But it's very hard for people to live under that assumption because the whole world insists in telling you the whole time that you are a creation.
Yeah.
Do you think your near-death experience helped you understand that?
So it helped. Yeah. So I feel it's kind of unfair with the people who haven't had a near-death experience because people who have been through near-death experiences, they have firsthand knowledge
of that other place. Yeah.
It's like telling, like I'm seeing the rainbow right now. No, there's no rainbow to be seen. I know I'm seeing the rainbow. Like it's my vision.
Right.
Like this reality is more fundamental than anything you can tell me. Like I love them. I love that person. My feeling is not for anyone to question. Like because it's fundamental. I feel it and I know it in first hand.
Yeah.
That's what I call first person reality.
Yeah.
First person reality is senior to third person reality. So third person reality is common. Is this consensus reality, right? It's 3D. We believe that is only one. The reality that we share is the real deal, is the real thing, and everything that happens in our heads, which is actually creation happening in real time, consciousness. We diminished that to epiphenomenon, to this is subjectivity. This doesn't matter. It's not scientific. So anyway, I digress. My near-death experience, I was exercising at the gym. Oh, that was almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I was doing abdominals, and as I stood up, you have this orthostatic hypotension, and you lose your vision for a little while sometimes when you stand up too fast. Yeah. And in my case, it never came back. Like the curtain was coming down. And I was going, and I passed out. Like I don't know how I ended up laying on the floor, but last thing I remember, I was standing trying to reach to someone to ask for help.
Okay.
And with that came the pain because of having the heart attack. And it wasn't a very long experience. I was out for like 10 minutes, and it wasn't very colorful as many NDEs are. But I found myself in the most peaceful state I've ever been my whole life, if that can be considered as being part of my life. or biologic life, because I was actually out of biology. I think it's the state monks and people try to achieve by meditating.
Yeah.
And it's so
Yeah.
Like that ultimate
Because-
nirvana zen moment, right?
yeah, because you only get there when you manage to shut off your brain. And,
Were you like in the dark, in a black dark area?
So I was like a floating monad in a black space, in a void. There was nothing. I
Okay.
didn't have an identity. I didn't know who I was. I mean, am I anything at all? Like I was just
Right.
being. There was no emotions, no feelings, no thought, no reasoning. It was just the pure and the most profound peace.
Did you have the sensation of having a body, or you just were?
No body, no at all, nothing at all.
Wow.
Later, I learned. I read this book by, what is her name? Anyway, she describes many types of near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, and according to her, this is one type of experience where you are kind of in between
between.
worlds.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was in this state in between worlds, and apparently according to her, that's where you travel to other universes and other worlds. I didn't do that.
Okay.
And I was there just enjoying, and then as I started getting back to my body, eventually they managed to raise my legs and blood started flowing back to my brain, and I was coming back, and the feeling, the sensation was like this machine, this noisy machine, which is our bodies. We don't hear the sound. I don't even know if it's like an actual sound or if it's a vibration of some sort, but we don't feel it because we are immersed in it the whole time. It's like the fish doesn't know what the water is because it's always there's no contrast, so we can't tell. But our lives are very, very noisy. Like these bodies are very, very noisy. And you can only tell when you go through some kind of experience like that no matter what explanation science will give us, like, oh no, this kind of supernatural experience happened because you are lacking oxygen in your brain and all of that.
Right.
They come with all sorts of bogus explanation because they don't know. And, so because they're supposed to say something smart, they go and like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's so much nonsense, and they're trying to analyze a realm of reality that is inaccessible to the scientific method, essentially. Yeah.
I was
Right.
wondering if you were in, I've heard of the void or the black space also being like the point of basically where it's infinite, possibilities, infinite potential. Like you're at the point of where you could just, I don't know. So I don't know if you zoom back to that or if you feel like you were in the in-between. And then I'm wondering with the body noises, was it physical noises like blood and, all your stuff happening, or was it more of like electricity type noise?
To me, it felt like 1,000 drums beating around me.
Okay.
Wow.
I didn't want to come back.
Right.
And then I spent like several years after that not trying to get back there, but I didn't want to die. But I mean, wishing I could be there again. Like when you go on vacation.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and speaking of that, I've been having this thought for the last few minutes now. Okay, so I've looked into DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and the things that I've read about it is it's a chemical, I guess, that your brain produces to protect your brain during a traumatic experience. And I don't know what I don't know what the physiology. I'm sorry. I don't know what it's doing to your brain in the moment, but I've heard from other people, because I haven't tried it myself, but I've heard from other people that when they take DMT, it puts them into that state that they had before. Do you know anything about that, or?
I never use psychedelics, and I'm actually pro psychedelics. I think we should explore for treatment and to treat diseases like PTSD.
Yes, they're doing that now, and I think that's great.
They're trying, but they're suffering so much less resistance. And but with any kind of medication or drug, they can alter your brain state.
Mhm.
So a normally functioning brain gives you a human experience. That's by design, kind of. It's how it's supposed to be.
Okay.
You have your five senses, and you have all of the emotions that we are able to feel. There is a correlation because there is an association between brain activity and the experience of the character here. So
Right.
my understanding is that we are actually actors. We are more like pure consciousness in another realm, but we are able to experience this human experience through this creation, which is the body and the brain. I believe it is a creation of consciousness. The whole universe is a creation of consciousness. In that
Okay.
case, ultimate consciousness being what we call God
Yeah.
eventually. But so whenever you alter the state of the brain, there's gonna have an impact on what the character is experiencing.
Right. Just like anesthetics,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Can shut off.
it changes the wave patterns within your brain to where you don't remember anything, right?
Right. And well, I guess, well, with psychedelics
right?
and different things, it could be opening your mind, right? It's going to open your awareness, right?
There is that, yeah. So what I hear about psychedelics is that it's kind of replicating the certain meditation states where the brain is no longer limitation, and then
Okay.
you are able to feel more. But I feel like the brain is always there somehow influencing because it hasn't been shut down. It's there,
Interacting.
just interacting with consciousness in a different way.
Yeah.
It's like messing with the antenna on the radio, like
Yeah.
I want to throw this out there, and I didn't share it on our Discord, on your Discord, Allie, but I wanted to find it again. But there is something, and you made me think about it, Justin, because it was with DMT, and this guy's making like a documentary or something. I think it's called The Discovery, if I'm not wrong on that. But and they are using laser beams, and they're like shoot the laser beams on the wall, creating a cross. So there's a cross of laser beams, and then they're putting their face up on the wall, and their eyes are lining up with these beams, and inside the beams, they're seeing codes, and they're all seeing the same codes. And so it's basically something feeding into the possibility of a simulation matrix. I don't know. I just wanted to mention that. I thought it was really wild.
I realized that nature doesn't keep secrets. It's only a matter of, do we understand? What tools can we use to expand our knowledge? And for me, dimethyltryptamine, also known as DMT, was the tool that led me to the discovery.
When I first saw the phenomenon, it was like, holy shit!
But then it was actually like, whoa, what is happening?
Am I losing my mind? But then I showed other people, and things kept getting weirder.
I showed over 100 people, and I kept asking myself, how are all of us seeing the same thing?
Oh my God, it's changing shapes right there.
The laser was revealing numbers and letters running in a pattern.
They're almost like this big here, and it looks like code.
It looked like programming code.
It's definitely saying something, and I just want to take a picture of it and translate it. Wow.
You see that?
Okay, so yeah, it's not stuck.
No.
It's not because of the light.
No, it's on its own side. Light is just literally revealing it.
And each angle shows you different layers, different ways through it.
I could see through the wall. It's not like a hallucination. It has spatial awareness and permanence.
I don't know. Whoa.
Daniel, did you cover all of your near-death experience, basically? It was pretty much you went to the black void or whatever you
Yeah,
might
it wasn't very colorful, but it was so impactful and so real that. And then after that, I went through my spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And it was a consequence of that, because when you go through an experience like that, then you know firsthand that you exist despite your body in your brain.
Right. I've learned that lesson vicariously through people like you that have had NDEs. I haven't had one myself, but I feel like I really got the lesson.
Same. Like
Yeah,
I
exactly.
do, you know, I don't ever say I wish I had a near-death experience, because I do feel like listening to them. I mean, granted, I, you know, with my own interest fell into this and have, you know, I researched it for like, you know, that's pretty basically what I did. I just dove into like spirituality, but it changed me. I mean, I feel like I was changed by listening to others' experiences of near-death experiences.
Yeah, my goal with the book, one of the goals was to help people realize they're conscious beings, and they exist beyond their bodies and brains without the need of going through a near-death experience.
Yeah.
By just realizing,
thank you for doing that.
Just accepting that the conscious experience we have cannot be described by science and by matter. And nowhere you look in our science are you going to find the slightest theory of how matter creates consciousness. The closest things we have to that is maybe the world is not really matter, it's all information. The universe is information based, and then information, depending on how information is processed, if you process information in this way, it becomes conscious. But it's such a lame explanation. It's still us trying to frame a higher reality into a lower understanding.
Yeah.
Right.
I find it to be such a beautiful, and I'm sorry if I just interrupted like both of you. I find it to be such a beautiful synchronicity, because I'm sitting here and I pulled a quote out of the book that you basically just said, but do you mind if I read this quote and then have you like reflect on it? Okay, it says, "The only proof we have that we exist and that everything else also exists is our consciousness. Our consciousness is the ultimate reality checking instrument."
Yeah. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't even be bothering to understand reality and the world if you were not conscious. Because bothering is one type of qualia. It's one feeling, is an emotion. This is bothering me. I want to learn more. Why is it bothering you? You're just a computer. Computers are not supposed to be bothered.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not who we are. It's not our nature. Our nature is much more profound, and we are trying to make sense of the interface, which is our body and our brain. It's like when you dive, you need a diving suit, because underwater is not where you're supposed to be. It's not part of your nature. Right. So to be there experiencing the underwater world, you need a special suit. Same here. To be this earth, in this material thing that is more limited than our nature, we need to put on special clothes.
I think that's so profound, and I feel like if more people understood and embodied that concept, that we're not these meat suits, we're not these bodies. Our consciousness exists eternally outside of these things. Yeah, they're parked in them right now, hanging out, having this experience, but this is not the thing. Like, this is not it. Like,
we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right.
And I described this thought experiment. It's on the Spiriduality site, spiriduality.com, not in the book. And we're actually dying and being born every second. Because if what we are is our brain, we are not actually the brain. We are a state of the brain. Every different moment, the brain is in a different state.
Right.
So who we are at each moment is that state, and that state is flowing. So the state that was a second ago is no longer. So that state has died and gave way to another state. And so every time we wake up in the morning, we are not the same person from yesterday. That person died, and a new person is born. we only have like the illusion of continuity because we have memory. So memory is what the state contains memory. So in that state, at every second is informing you of everything that happened to that material substrate of the brain in the past. But that past doesn't no longer exist. Well, the only thing that exists is the present, the current state.
Yeah.
And then you have the situation if you extrapolate and you assume the technology is going to keep evolving, eventually you'll be able to replicate your brain in either as a biological brain or in silica. You might be able to replicate the current state of your brain somewhere else.
Wow.
And then you have two states. Now, are you going to be afraid of dying, meaning losing that state, if the same state is replicated somewhere else?
Probably not.
It depends on how you look at it, because if you're very materialistic or like you may decide, no, that state is just like me, but it's not me. It's like a twin, an equal twin, but it's not me. Different. It's something else. It's a copy, right?
Right.
But that state is if the state is consciousness. It doesn't really exist materially. Like if it existed, we will be able to measure those things, but we're not able to measure those experiences. So if the same state is causing the same experience, it doesn't really matter from a consciousness perspective which one you keep on or which one you turn off.
Right.
So my point is that we either we are always dying or we never die.
Or we're always evolving and growing, which I think.
Yeah, exactly. Evolving, but then who you were before.
I guess I'm speaking from a spiritual being perspective, not the human being perspective.
Yeah.
I tend to do that. I guess I consider myself more of a spiritual being than a human being.
Yeah, and we're gonna face those situations more and more often. Like a friend of mine is a researcher here at UCSD, and he builds biological brains, like a mini brains.
Wow.
And are those brains conscious, or to what extent? And I don't think science has the tools to answer the question. The question will remain philosophical. Or we may decide that consciousness is more fundamental, and we might decide that it's completely valid to use consciousness as a probe to understand, make it like a tool to understand reality and the world.
Yeah, okay.
Wow.
At which point we're not talking about science anymore, it's something else. But I think we're gonna need to use those something else's, like to understand reality. Like
we'll need some serious changes. I do feel like it's happening though. Like I feel like we're moving.
Yeah. And maybe who knows, these UAPs will provide us with some technology that will give us more clue, even though I doubt it's going to be able to answer those consciousness questions. Or they will be able to answer questions, but the explanation will not replace the experience. The experience remains in another realm.
Wow. I really love that you have spent your entire life studying this question of where does consciousness come from? Does the brain create consciousness, or does consciousness create the brain? If you had to summarize, because you literally dedicated a medical career to answering this question. So I'm like hands down to you, dude. Like I'm like flabbergasted and so impressed. I'm like, can't even believe I'm talking to somebody of your caliber. Anyways, how would you describe what you learned during your medical career? Like if you had to sum up what you learned during your medical career to answer that ultimate question that you took that career in the first place, where does consciousness come from? How would you sum it up?
Almost nothing. It was like an unlearning, right? Like because medicine assumes that the body is all that exists. So from that perspective, you're not really learning anything. I would say that I was never a psychiatrist. I never worked with mental health. I think the professionals who work with mental health, they have lots of insights into what's really real. I was a neurologist, so I was a nuts and bolts guy.
Right.
I was looking at brain as a machine.
Right.
So epilepsy patients, they need to be treated with certain drugs that would calm down certain neurons in a certain way, or would remove parts of the brain. Like, can you like realize how primitive that is? Like removing parts of the brain?
Yeah.
People tend to think that neurosurgery is such like a high thing, like such a highly complex, evolved discipline. But a lot of times it's all about removing stuff instead of like a building, like building a brain or replacing a brain would be much like a more
Wow.
right.
Thanks for saying that, because I never really put that much thought into that. But it kind of correlates with a lot of, around the medical field in general. It's kind of the same situation.
Yeah, I'd say that medicine is way behind, like
Okay.
the medical establishment. So much so that I decided not to stay in academia and I left. I never took that job at Cornell, and I never became a professor. I went and did an MBA, became an entrepreneur, and I decided that I wanted to experience life rather than explaining life from a lab.
Okay.
That's wow.
That's a cool turnaround.
Yeah.
Very cool turnaround.
Yeah. So that there is a reason behind that, and the reason is that I mean, medicine makes wonders, right? Like I was saved from the heart attack because of a stent that I was put on, and I was treated super fast, and I don't have any deficits or any impairments in my heart because of medicine. So the medical field is evolving, but it deals with the machine. So it deals with the machine. It doesn't
and
deal
not the spiritual aspect.
No, not at all.
I use spiritual a lot. I mean, consciousness and spirituality are like the same thing to me.
So consciousness, to me, so this is interesting.
Okay.
The fact that we are conscious, the simple fact that we feel pain, to me, is proof that we are spiritual beings, because matter cannot feel. That's not defined. If it can feel, there's no mechanism to it. We don't know how matter feels, no matter how organized it is, in the form of a brain or whatever. It's not supposed to feel. If it feels anything, because it's spiritual. So that's the point I make in the book. We are spiritual beings, and that's like a hidden in plain sight. We are spiritual beings because we are not rocks. We are spiritual beings because we can feel, we can experience the whole thing. And only spiritual, so the experience is not happening on the material level. It's what people would say, consciousness is non-local. It doesn't happen in the brain.
Right.
It happens in another context, in another reality. I was going to say dimension, but that word is kind of bad. It happens somewhere else, and nobody knows. And we're not supposed to know, because it's beyond our technical capabilities. And also if you think about it, science, what has really science given us? We're able to build toys, like more sophisticated toys and more dangerous toys.
Yeah.
But has it made us better people?
Can I read another quote from your book that I feel like lends to what you just said and also expands the conversation into where I'd like to go next?
Yes.
Okay. It says, while I hope quantum mechanics and the AI revolution will prove somehow to have been an evolutionary step towards a true science of consciousness, I wonder how many future revolutions in physics and how many more centuries we'll need to fully evolve from mere random number generation to a complete understanding of the experiential nature of the universe. That's time we don't have. To heal our world today and evolve from monkeys with nuclear weapons to something better, we need to start understanding spirituality now. I fucking love that.
I think there is a pressing need. Either we realize we are spiritual beings, and we start dealing with science and matter and the 3D world as for what it is, subordinate reality to our senior reality, which is our consciousnesses. Because I think eventually, ultimately, our consciousnesses are all connected, or could always be the same. That's where the idea that we are all one, one is all is one, comes from, right? Because consciousness, it's like a consciousness. It's probably indivisible. Like I think of a ruler. A ruler can have infinite inches, right? It can be an infinite ruler, but every inch has infinite points within that inch. Does that make sense? Are you familiar with the idea that you can always take a certain distance and divide that again?
And it can just keep going and going.
And create more points within a limited space. So to me, our individual consciousnesses are like infinite inches in an infinite rule.
So fractals.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like consciousness is filtered through each of us individually, and each of our filters creates, our own personal experience and whatnot.
And now we get to the third part of the book, which is related to what you read, Ali, which is we are very primitive and stupid species because we make wars against ourselves, not realizing that we are fighting ourselves.
Literally
hurting ourselves.
If everybody realized,
it's embarrassing.
It is.
It's actually very embarrassing. Like if you're looking at it from the higher reality, it is super embarrassing. Every time you have you are like as an or country or an individual. Every time you are in conflict with someone or disagreement or you are disagreeing or you're in conflict with yourself.
Yes.
Because if you're not from the same nature, you wouldn't even realize it's there. It is this thing. Like we don't fight with fish. We are in different categories, right? We don't make wars. We can kill them, but we don't engage in this hatred with fish, for example.
Yeah.
We only do that with equals. So at some very fundamental level, we are all the same, going through this experience. And to answer your prior question, Leslie, there is one thing that I think is very nice in medicine, in the medical field, which is integrative medicine. Integrative medicine is being used more and more in many centers, which is a kind of holistic approach to treating patients with all sorts of therapies. And it's not something that is most physicians are very fond of. There are a few medical champions in the space promoting integrative medicine, and I think that's something that is worth mentioning.
Yes, I agree. And for that to grow and to continue, because it needs to be a more holistic approach, definitely, to our health.
Yeah, I'm worried. I decided to write this book because it was long in the making in my brain. I actually wrote it pretty fast, but because of everything that is happening in our world, I think the only way to escape this trap is by understanding that it is a trap.
Yeah.
It's like Plato's allegory of the cave. You got to realize that you're in a cave.
Exactly. And you have to live by it. You have to really, at the time when you really internalize and embody the idea that you are consciousness first and foremost, your whole life changes. The way you manifest things in life change. Your approach to life and others change. The perspective. You become fearless and you become abundant because you don't lack anything. Like when I was in the NDE, I was a monad in a void without having any specific knowledge, and I had everything I needed. I was full potentiality there.
Right.
So we have to change and that's, to me, that's way more important than all of these UFOs and the whole phenomenology around that. Hopefully the phenomenon and the lights in the sky, I like those. Tonight I'm going to go to a C5 event, my second.
Nice.
I love that you do that.
I actually go because I like to be with people and vibrating and meditating.
Yeah.
I don't care that much if lights pop up. I've seen them and like, all right. And that doesn't really change my life.
Okay.
But the
Yeah.
understanding of who I am, who I really am, changes my life forever. I'll never trade that for the biggest UFO landed in my backyard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is super important. And I feel that's why I'm here doing this with Allie. You know what I mean? It's that push for people to understand who and what they truly are. And, you know, you actually start to see everybody as that because everybody is you and we are them. And we're just
Yeah.
experiencing it from different perspectives and bodies and, you know, and
Right.
and love. What we
I've
learn from
seen
NDE
things
is
like-
love is really all that matters. So.
Yeah, it's amazing seeing those things. One day I was coming from an astrophotography session. It was like after midnight, and I was beyond the limits of the Arches National Park, driving my truck back, and this this cylindrical shape flies right over my truck. It was sparkling, blue sparkling, and then I was thinking of Chris Little's latest video on plasma and plasma beings and plasma be alive and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That beautiful thing flew like right over my car, and I stopped.
I had an experience so similar to that. That's wild.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
was at the
funny
Grand
because-
Canyon driving in, like before
Oh.
the sun came up. Yeah.
And what did you
Right
see?
over the windshield, or across, I should say. not
What
over.
did you see? What was it? What did you see?
It was a huge, like circle with like, well, it looked like maybe a little tail of flames. It wasn't a long flame tail, and I say flames because it just had that, you know, look because it was moving this way, but it was just it took up the entire windshield, and it was like a whitish, greenish, bright, very bright thing just shooting. So I mean, of course, I didn't think UFO at the time. I thought it. Meteorite or whatever you would call it. I don't know what it's called. That
Okay.
Meteorite.
yeah.
And-
So that, you know, was my thought on it. But you know, now looking back, and when we did the thing with Lato files, I mentioned it on that whenever I forget, but what we're doing with the videos, the UAP videos. Anyway, but yeah.
It's so nice. Yeah, it shows
I'll never
they're
forget.
there. It shows there is something.
There's
to
something
it.
there, yeah.
In my case, I stopped the truck and I stepped out to see where did it go. There was so much dirt behind me, and all of that dirt, the wind was like blowing my way. All of that dirt came over the truck, and I couldn't see anything anymore. And I was, oh damn it.
Yeah.
I just remember one thing that I wanted to share with you. Those spheres that people have been describing, I'm pretty much sure I saw one of them when I was flying one day here in California.
Really? Really?
Please spill the tea. I'm listening.
Like I was flying from San Luis Obispo to San Diego,
Okay.
and I was south of Santa Barbara, and I see this thing in the distance, which is like was a ball, but it was pretty far, and flying, making a curve like a super fast, and I was like, wow, am I in risk of like a collision here? And then I checked the ADS-B, and there was nothing there. So I was like, maybe it's one of those spheres, and because it was like a dot. It was kind of hard to see. It was far, but it was.
Did it show up on any of your instrumentation?
It didn't show anywhere. It was just me seeing it.
And
my instrumentation is just a DSB. No.
Okay.
And for those that don't know, ADS-B is a data broadcast system that all aircraft are required by law to broadcast. And the only people that are allowed to fly without ADS-B are the military. So if you don't see anything on ADS-B, then either one, they're breaking the law, which that's probably not the case, or it's either military or something anomalous. And if it was just a orb,
I'm going with
plasma,
anomalous.
Then it's definitely anomalous.
I'm going with anomalous.
And it wasn't very far from a military corridor, which is it's not a regular military type of airspace. It's like a band. There is like around south of Santa Barbara. It was south of that band. It wasn't in the band, but anyway.
Yeah.
It could have been just military. Maybe we already know how to do those things. Yeah.
I mean, by your description, I don't think it was military at all. I don't think it was a conventional airplane or craft that, you know. So, yeah, definitely very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing.
I remember that now. Yeah. But my point is that experience, however magical, doesn't compare to knowing who you truly are and living a fearless life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pure gold. Like having the new understanding that consciousness is more fundamental.
Right.
What's your? Oops, sorry.
There's nothing anybody can do to harm you. Like they can even kill you, but that's not gonna destroy you.
One of the people that we spoke to that had an NDE, her name is Megan Brown. Shout out Megan. She was talking to God about an incident that she was involved in, and basically, God told her, "You cannot kill a soul." Even though your influence led to that being not being physically here anymore, you didn't kill that soul. You cannot kill a soul. So even though you were involved in that, don't feel bad about it, because all is forgiven, all is good, and that soul still exists.
Yeah, our whole world lives in such a lack of understanding, and that includes like the most powerful people in the world. They are so ignorant,
aren't they?
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah,
I know. If you had to like describe your opinion on like in terms of like the spectrum of believing in aliens to not believing in aliens, where do you fall on that spectrum? Where would you describe yours?
100%. We are aliens, right?
Okay.
Like, 100%. I mean, but I don't care much about believing or disbelieving. You just have to follow the evidence. The thing is that science has a preconceived notion of what the evidence should look like.
Yeah.
If it doesn't match what they expect, they will like do their best like to just destroy that. They will be like, damn, this shouldn't be happening. And the thing is that all of these experiences, I think it's by design, they are not replicable. So they are not really prone to be studied in a lab, right?
Exactly.
So science is very restrictive. Like for you to do real science, it is very restrictive. You have to have so much control over all of the variables. And that's why we have sciences that are not really science. Like there are more correlatory studies and correlations, and that's why statistics has become something so important. Because since you can model it, you can control all the variables. All you can show is that there is a higher % probability of something happening. Then that's all a sign of our limitation of how limited the method is. I'm not against science, not at all. I work with it.
Yeah.
And I made a career in it.
You just understand that it's not the end all be all.
Right.
You just have to understand what it's for. It's a tool. It's not a religion.
Yeah.
It's not a way of life.
Right.
It's just a tool.
Exactly.
Can you ask him your famous question?
All right. What is your greatest hope for the future of humanity?
Well, that people can understand and accept their true spiritual nature. I think that's the only way to fix this world from all the perils and all of the perceived dangers that we are facing.
Right.
Is by, I mean, on an individual level, it's easy because once you know who you are and you manage to live a fearless life, you're not afraid anymore. You just keep flying, just.
Yeah.
And that'll create the ripple effect.
Huh?
We talk about ripple effects, but it'll create a ripple effect just by you being aware and sharing whatever you can share. And even by the energy, I feel like that we give off, you know what I mean?
You go fearless. And on an individual level is easy, but on the collective, it's much more complicated. So that's why the work you guys are doing is so important. All of these channels who discuss the
near-death experiences,
spirituality, near-death experiences, they are helping open the eyes of people. And That's the only way we can get out of this trap.
That's literally why we're doing
Right.
it, because I
helps
know
spread
how
awareness.
profound the lessons were to shifting my view of reality, that I had to help other people do the same thing. I was just like, I gotta talk about this shit, man. It's too important not to.
Right. And another thing, it seems like you touch on, I mean, you obviously said we are creators, and, you know, it's a mental, you know, reality to some extent. So, you know, we are creating our reality. So, you know, what are your thoughts on, you know, law of attraction and those types of things?
Oh, he talks about the law of one and Ra in the book.
Yeah,
Okay.
I talk of several of those laws, and they work. They really do. But there is always
I've come to learn that it takes a lot of practice to change your thought, you know, patterns, and your, you know, you got to change your habit, your habitual thought, negative thoughts and things like
and
that.
also one thing that is super important, and I learned that a lot from Bashar. I don't know how familiar you are with Daniel Branco and Bashar.
We love Bashar.
There are many people channeling entities, but Bashar is the one I resonated the most with. It was the one that helped me the most throughout my own journey. And that said, I try my best to make the book very much a first principles kind of book. I don't, because it's not about believing, it's about what is hidden in plain sight. Like, let's face it, like there is something, consciousness is something that science is not explaining, and it's probably because it's outside of the boundaries,
right?
The limitations of science. But anyway, Bashar, this idea came from him, in my life at least, that life is always bringing you what you need, but not necessarily what you want. And I think that with a lot of attraction, it really helps that you trust life to the best of your abilities, as Bashar says, because by doing so, you understand that what you're getting at every moment is what you need. And I have a little chapter in the book about wants and needs, like wanting and how to deal with them, and how that compares, how wanting compares to free will, for example, which is a higher level kind of wanting. Like you have the free will to choose the type of life that you're gonna live.
Yeah,
that's a type of wanting. But our wants are usually related to either things, people, or ego. So there are three types of attachment that we have to deal with. The first type is to things, your car, your house, your things. This is type 1 attachment. Then there is the second type, which is other people, relationships. It's great to love someone, but by the time you become attached to the point you don't know who you are, it's a type of attachment that should be avoided, I think. And the third type is your own ego. Like we are so, and this is part of the problem with humanity these days. We are so attached to our titles and to our professions and to how people look at us and all of that, because once you realize that's just the character, that's not the actor, it's easier it makes it easier to let go of that type of attachment. But I like a lot of attraction and it works. But if you combine that idea with these other ideas like detachment, the idea of trusting life, of and another thing that really helps me is being thankful for everything that happens that I perceive as being bad.
Attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. This is so powerful because it's so easy to be thankful for the good things, but the bad things or the difficult things are the ones that really make you grow, right? And
you learn lessons.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You grow through what you go through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but at some point, it's funny that at some point I made a decision in my life that I wanted to be happy, and that's the point of attraction I set for myself. Like this is, and
I can relate to that. I did that too.
Mm-hmm.
It happens quite automatically because it's kind of the same idea of unconditional love. Like when you love people or something or someone unconditionally, that love is being given to the people. It's not, there's no expectation of getting it back. But because you're giving it, you're living it. So whatever you're putting out, you are living. So if you make a decision, "No, I deeply want to be happy, and I'll make that choice every time of my life, every second." By choosing to put out that happiness, makes you live in happiness, because you cannot put out what you don't have.
Yeah.
So
You're making my cheeks hurt, dude.
I know. I love it. Like, that's one transformation for me. Like, at one point in my life, before I guess my spiritual awakening, my growth and all that I've gone through, if something negative or bad happened to me, I mean, my day, or it could be a week, would be ruined. I'd be in this low vibration, just horrible crying, whatever it might be, stuck there. But now something might happen and I can just walk away from that and choose like to not let it affect me anymore and go on and have a great day. And I'm just like, it's so, what is
liberating,
the word?
Liberating. Yeah,
yes.
It's going from victim mode to like, woe is me. Why are all these bad things happening to me? And you switch your mindset to go, oh shit, wait a second. This is supposed to be happening for me so that I can learn something. Let me figure out what that lesson is so that I don't have to redo this again in a different scenario.
It's our choice. It's all our creation. It's if we want this, we choose to be miserable, we're going to be miserable. Like if we choose, you may be a victim for a fact, but if you choose not to be one, you won't be one.
Yeah.
Like on the other hand, you may have everything everybody wishes, and you can still feel like a victim
and still not be happy, right?
You can choose still, you can still choose that. So I think that the law of attraction, I interpret it a little bit different. I don't think it's something that, like many people would say, oh, do good and you receive good back from people. And that happens a lot. But I think it's more direct. When you're doing good, you are already receiving it, because you are experiencing the good in real time that you're giving.
Right. It's like it's instant in the now.
Yeah, it's like when you learn how to channel love, you don't really need it to get back to you, because by putting it out,
you are it.
You are it.
Daniel, you are literally so awesome to talk to. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I need you to do me a favor and tell our audience where they can find you. Drop your links. Tell them where you're at online.
I think the best place could be the Spiriduality site, spiriduality.com.
Okay.
Before people, when you write a book, people always think you want to get rich out of writing a book. So if people are not don't want to buy the book, I can always send a PDF if they make contact and send me a message through the website.
Oh, that's nice of you.
I'm not in the business of selling books, but and also because also if you give up, if you just give them away for free, like churches do, it feels like you're trying to convert them into an idea, which is definitely not the case. I say that in the book. What I'm going to tell here is something that you can absorb and incorporate in your life without changing any belief in our life. It's just about making a different choice. It's not about adopting a different belief. It's making a choice. The brain is not creating consciousness. Consciousness is creating the brain. This is simply a choice. It's not a matter of belief, because it doesn't even make sense to believe, because we can't prove. So don't waste your time believing.
Well, I've heard that also having beliefs limit your experience too.
Belief limitations, they are all over the place. That whenever you believe in something, you are limiting yourself. Right. So that's what I believe in.
I love how that conversation just came completely full circle all the way back to the beginning. That was beautiful. All right, so Daniel, thank you so much. You have been amazing. My cheeks are I'm sitting here going, oh, why are my cheeks so funny? It's like, because I've been smiling this whole time. Okay, but I just think you're a wealth of information. My mind has been blown so many times. It went to all these different places and all these different topics. So I know that if it did it for me, I'm excited that you're going to do the same thing for our audience. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. Is there any last words of advice or thing you'd like to say before we close out?
Just trust life and make the best choices for your life. It doesn't matter if they are the right ones or not, if the brain creates this consciousness or consciousness creates the brain. What matters is that by choosing to adopt the assumption that consciousness creates the brain, that opens up so much more possibilities in our lives. It's worth making that choice.
Beautiful. Thank you
Beautiful.
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the hospitality, and Ali, Justin, Leslie. This was a great, great pleasure.
Oh, did you
It was
enjoy the
awesome.
experience? I hope you did.
Yeah. And I want to give you a happy birthday shout out as well. It's Daniel's birthday. So
Yes, happy birthday.
happy birthday.
Yeah, this is a special day. Yeah, very.
I like to call it Birth on Earth Day.
Oh,
Birth on Earth
I like
Day.
that.
There you go.
Birth on Earth Day.
Yes.
That's so cute.
Yes.
Super cute. Alrighty, and for our audience that's still sticking around, please do us a favor and smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word.
Absolutely.
Much love. Peace.
Peace. And
And
namaste.
namaste.